Evgenia, and thank you to everybody at CSP. I am so honored to be here. You guys are the best crowd ever. And I also want to thank, it's so nice now I can see some of the names and I'm getting to know some of the people who have been on previous tours and also answering all the emails. I can see you just came in there to the screen, Judy, on Howard's screen. And also old faces. I saw you, Lou Shaw, that you have joined up. Thank you for that. And also just in general, I get so many emails from people every day, and it's so nice that some people give complimentary emails about my presentations. I really appreciate that. So whenever you have your problems logging in and things, and I'm answering those emails, it's so nice to get to know everybody. But without further ado, I'll go on to share screen and we will get to the presentation, which I'm so excited to give you because I've been working on it for so long. And hold on a second, I'm going to make it into the large presentation. Here we go. And I'm just excited to give it all to you. Okay, here we start. Inside the new National Library of Israel, a virtual exploration. Welcome, everybody. Gather round to follow your guide as we go to this virtual tour of the new National Library. It's so nice to see you all today. And the library has been open since October 29, 2023, October being an auspicious date, as you know, in 2023. That was they decided to open after October 7, because that was when it was originally scheduled for. And the BBC rated the National Library as one of the most important buildings of 2023 to open up. We don't always count on the BBC, but in this case, we'll give them credit. So today we're going to be talking about a few different things. The tour is going to be divided into talking about the place itself of the National Library and where it's situated in Jerusalem and its relationships to its environment, the building and the architecture and the design and everything that was taken into consideration, the history of the development of the library, and also we're going to tour inside, and then we're going to explore some of the collections that are inside the library. But before we do that, let's consider for a moment, what is the role of a library? If I was to ask you, what do you think a library should do and what its role is, you might come up with some of these words, but when each word then invokes a question, because what is it that the library collects? Is it just books? Is it manuscripts? Is it digital archives? And how do you organize it? Who are you sharing it with? Can you borrow? What are you going to put on display? So the National Library had to answer all of these questions. What is its role actually going to be? And they came up with the objectives of the National Library. The objectives of the National Library are to collect, preserve, cultivate, and endow the treasures of knowledge, heritage, and culture in general, with an emphasis on the land of Israel, the state of Israel, and the Jewish people in particular. Now, collect and preserve, kind of that could be attached to a museum, but cultivate and endow, they basically really imbue these active roles the library has to take. And there is a further elaboration that the National Library goes on to on their website, where they talk about how they're going to do that by collecting the different maps and manuscripts and music, and being a public place that's open to everybody, and being a central research library for Jewish studies, Middle Eastern studies, Islamic studies, having changing exhibitions, and being a cultural place for gatherings, and also professional guidance, and have a relationship with libraries all around the world. So in this sense, the architects then had to take this and create an architectural vision for the library. The architects, a Swiss architects company, Herzog de Meuron, and they designed other things such as the Beijing Stadium, the stadium for the Olympics in 2008, the Bird's Nest, which a few of you might know. And this is the architectural vision that they announced when they laid the cornerstone in 2016. The values of the National Library of Israel are set out over a decade ago in the original competition brief, are reflected in our design for the new library building. The library is a place of learning and exchange that will bring people together It is intended to be open for all nationalities and religious affiliations, all ages and levels of education, all income levels, and all cultures. Through its openness and connection to the surrounding city, the building is designed to fulfill the library's mission to democratize knowledge. So I especially emphasize the all and the learning and exchange and the democratizing knowledge, because we're going to see how this is demonstrated through the architecture. So when we first look at this picture, what I wanted to show is place. Where is the library situated in Jerusalem and its environs? It's situated in a neighborhood called Kiryat HaMemshalah. And Kiryat HaMemshalah means the government compound or complex. Let's look at the buildings that are surrounding it. Here you have the Knesset over here, which is the Israeli parliament. This is the library over here in this interesting shaped building. This over here is the Bible Lands Museum. This over here is the new Israel Antiquities Authority that we did a virtual tour there with Nachliel Selavan. And this over here, all of this is the Israel Museum. And this over here is the Shrine of the Book, where the Dead Sea Scrolls are kept. These are also buildings of the finance ministry. Over here, this is where the Supreme Court is. So all these big national entities are immediately in its immediate environment. And across the road over here, not on the map, is the Hebrew University of Givat Ram. So what's interesting is when the architects did their first sketch, they kind of took the shrine of the book, which symbolizes the top of the cap of the pottery that encased the Dead Sea Scrolls, that preserved it for all time and kept it closed. And they wanted to open it up. And this circle that you see over here originally was meant to be like an inverted shrine. So they're using the influences of the museum. What else are they using the influences of in their environment? They have these open windows over here facing Rupin Street, which also face towards the university. So they're letting the knowledge of the university in, they're interacting with it, they're having a conversation. And the whole building, the architects talk about that it has to be transparent to its environment, and not by the means of you can see through it, but transparent in the sense that the role that the building is taking on has to be open and understandable through the architecture. And so the ways in which they do that, I think, are also by using Jerusalem stone. Now, Jerusalem stone, it has been set out by the British in law that all buildings in Jerusalem have to be made using Jerusalem stone. And so you can see the facade of the building is Jerusalem stone. But when we talk about stone, we immediately come to mind with Jerusalem stone the Kotel, which Clifford Cordell always has as his background. And we'll see how this is further reflected in the building. And stone itself, the word for stone in Hebrew is even. Even is made up of two Hebrew words, av and ben, father and child. There's a sense of permanence with stone. It stands the test of time. And what's interesting here from this view, I'm standing at the Knesset. I'm looking over towards Mount Herzl over here. So in the distance is Mount Herzl, where you have the National Cemetery and also Yad Vashem. And when you stand over there, they didn't want the view to the Knesset to be blocked. So did they cut a chunk out of the building so it doesn't block the view to the Knesset, so that you still see, and there's a connection between Yad Vashem and the Knesset? They wanted it to meld also into the environment. What is this chunk that's been taken out of it, and how does that reflect the architectural vision? Is it like a cave that's been dug out? What is it doing over here? A lot of people have different kind of views about it, but I wanted to relate it back to its relationship with Jerusalem in a larger sense, because not only have we got the relationship with the immediate environment, but Jerusalem itself is an icon. Jerusalem, the eternal capital of Jerusalem, and it is this cultural coming together of three civilizations, an eternal city. It has to be relevant also to the Jewish people. And the Jewish people, what are we known as? The Jewish people are known as the people of the book. And Lord Sachs, when he came to give a presentation at the National Library, he said books and the acts of reading and writing, studying and teaching, interpreting and expounding are all things absolutely fundamental to Judaism. When Jews think of life, they think of a book. That is what we're about. Therefore, when the Quran calls us the people of the book, that is Am HaSefer, that is one of the understatements of all time. We are a people only because of that book. Eitz Chaim Chi Lamachazikim Ba. There's a tree of life for those who cling to it. And so being Am HaSefer, I'd like to propose that that shape might remind us of an open book, that convex and concave, those shapes in an abstract sense. I didn't hear the architects say this in their speech, but that's what I think of when I look at it. And I think that really speaks to the environment as well, and the architectural vision, that it's opening up, that the building is transparent. It's an open book for everybody is invited to come in and to read and to be a part of it. So let's ourselves go on a little walk. Over here, I took a little video and you can see the shrine of the book over there, the Israel Museum. And then you turn around and you start walking up the street. And on your right-hand side, you have the Knesset, the Israeli parliament. And here it is. And what do you notice about the Knesset? It's behind a fence. We keep on going and we go across the road. We'll turn around in a second and then you can see the National Library there from a first glimpse. And you can see just how big it is by all the cars that are lined up in front of it. We're going to cross the road and then we're going to go and see a installation, a monument called Letters of Life by Mikra Ullman. This artwork presented here is 18 stones that have been hewn from the Ramon crater in limestone, not Jerusalem stone, so slightly different interaction there. And they are 18 different letters. The letters themselves are the building blocks for the books that are inside the library. The sunbeams pass through them and they build and they change the letters all throughout the day. And what's interesting also about this, here you can see the letter Bet, Vav. Over there, you've got Mem, is this interaction between light and darkness. Over there, you can see the southern face of the building peeping through there, and the gardens. The gardens have been very nicely manicured. You can see people sitting in them in the distance poking through the trees. Those are soldiers over there that are walking through the garden. So everybody's using the space around it. Going back to the letters, and this concept, Micha Ullman also did another installation in Berlin, in the main plaza there. Over here in the middle, you've got the Aleph, Alif, and A, the beginning letters of the alphabet. And underneath is a cavern, which talks directly to his installation in Berlin, which represents the burning of the books. And underneath here, there, he's got the empty library where they all burn the books. And over here, this is saying these are the building blocks. These are the future that we can then build on and rejoice in the rebirth. These static blocks become dynamic with the library. We're going to walk up towards the library. And as I said before, one of the main features, besides the beautiful gardens that you see over here and that you can notice, when you compare the gardens and the surrounds of the library compared to the Knesset across the road from it, the Knesset has a fence, which I'll show you again in a second, and the library doesn't. Why? Because we said in the architectural vision and also in the objectives for the library, it is to be open for all. It's meant to be accessible. We're democratizing knowledge. This has got to be open. Everybody's got to be able to get there and get inside and have access to this. Here you can see lots of tour buses are coming. When the library used to be at Givat Ram, and I'll talk about the history of the library, nobody would come and visit. Now there's tour buses every single day. You can start to get a better glimpse over here of the outside of the building and the design of the stones. Think about where you are again. We're in Jerusalem. Again, there's a famous wall here in Jerusalem. Does it make you think about that? There you go. You can see the Knesset and the fence again. What does this pattern remind you of? Not only the kotel, does it remind you of something else? Think to yourself, what do these shapes remind you of? What is coming to mind? And not only can you put it in the chat, but I've come up with a list myself of different things that I've been on tours that people have said when they think about this. And this is what they say. It looks like the kotel. It might look like some type of alphabet, looks like different bookends, looks like ostraca, which are clay tablets that that the first original writings that we find that are written on in the area. It looks potentially like the clover leaves of the Bunting map, which is a famous old map of the world by Henry Bunting, which is actually housed inside the library over here. Windows could potentially be windows into time and space, the tablets of the Ten Commandments or mosaics. The architects themselves refer to it as being like the kotel. It's made from Jerusalem stone, and in that way it's interacting with Jerusalem and its environment. And these different shapes are reflecting the erosion of the different stones and also the holes in the wall where you can put your messages. And so in that sense, it's inviting you to come inside and for you to write a message in the wall. What is the history of the library? 1892 was when B'nai B'rith first founded a public library here in Jerusalem. So that's before the Zionist Congress of 1897. And so before we had a state and before we had a manifesto and a vision for a state, we had the books, Am HaSefer, we had the library. And one of the biggest contributors to this library was a man called Dr. Joseph Chazanovich, and he donated 10,000 books from his home in Bialystok. How did he get so many books? He was a doctor, and when he treated his patient, he asked them to pay him by giving him a book. And so he got and accumulated many, many books. So from that, we can learn that he must have been a very good doctor. In 1925, that was when the Hebrew University of Jerusalem was founded on Mount Scopus, and the library transferred to those premises. In 1947 and 48, of course, we had the breakout of the War of Independence, and the Hebrew University campus on Mount Scopus was inaccessible. And so they managed to smuggle the books back into the other side of Western Jerusalem and distribute them between different people's houses. In 1953, the Knesset enacted the legal deposit law, which meant and mandated that 2 copies of every publication that was made in Israel needed to be deposited in the university library for posterity. And that law is still enacted today. Any book that is published in Israel, whether it's a children's book or a legal document or anything, 2 copies have to be given to the National Library. In 1960, that's when the new building in the Givat campus and the Givat Ram campus library was built, which was the home for the library for over 60 years. But in 2007, the Knesset adopted the National Library of Israel law, which has basically created a rebranding of the library to make it for everybody, for the whole of Israel. Because if the National Library is on a university campus, who are the people that go to the library? Students. I never even knew that the library existed on the Givat Ram campus until I did the tour guide course, because nobody even knew it was there. Unless you were a student. And so by rebranding and saying that it's a national library for the whole of Israel, it's, again, setting that objective of democratizing knowledge, making it available for everybody. And so they started to search for a place, and they came up with this section of land, and then they started building in 2016. The cornerstone was laid, and in 2023, it was opened. Now let's go inside. Join me inside. We enter first. On the left is an educational center. Those are the lifts, that's security where you can leave a bag. We go around. On the left over here is the auditorium. We see a central staircase over here. These are all the tour groups that are coming for a tour, but you guys just stick with me and I'll take you to all the good spots. Over there is a bookshop. There's some really cool books inside there, including one that I'm going to show you soon, which is 101 Treasures of the National Library. And we're going to look at their permanent exhibition of the treasures in order to see it. Walking around this space, you see here's the big reading room, the central reading room. And what you can see when you look inside it, what does it remind you of? Think about where people meet in the Tanakh. Here you have over 630 seats for people to sit and gather and explore. And different to any other library around the world, there are no ladders. All the bookshelves are easily accessible by everybody. You've got offices there above. There are actually 6 levels to the library above ground, which we're going to see. But here I focused in on this person walking, so you can see that all the bookshelves are accessible and all the books are accessible. They're all at the height of a person that you can reach and get them. Just going back out, and you can see in this area, there's the welcoming desk, and we're going to move around. I'll maybe make this go a little bit faster so that we can see that's the staircase, which is a major feature that I'm going to show you. You can see the naked concrete, which is also contoured, which gives flow to the building and the design. We're going to make our way to the back there to see what those shapes are. All of this basically shows that the library isn't just one big space. There's lots of different little rooms, because just like when you enter a house and you've got the living room and the dining room and the kitchen and the bathroom, each space gives a different flavor, and it also makes you feel at home and lets each person that comes to visit the library find their own space, find their own place to be at home in the library. This beautiful textured wall over here is actually textiled material by an artist. It's an installation by an artist called Gal Knani. And she's basically recreating the layers of the desert over here. It adds a soft, sensual warmth to the building. It also provides insulation from noise, because you want a library to be quiet. I personally, though, think the best feature of this level, hold on a second, we're going to skip the toilets and we're going to go to the cafeteria, because if you come to a library, you need coffee, but you also need a Jerusalem bagel and a pastry. So if I have enticed you already to come visit the library, you have to come and see and sample the pastries in the cafeteria. Then I think we just go back outside to the main building. Oh, this is the auditorium, which has 480 seats. So again, the endowing, part of the endowing is about cultural events and showing the people that they are welcome here. And lastly, I think I will just take you to the reading rooms that you see it. So here's the reading room. So I mentioned before, think about in the Tanakh, where do people meet? The elders gather at the gates to give judgment. And if you want to hook up, if you want to meet your wife, Isaac and Rebecca, they meet at the well. If you want to gather. So the architects called this the well of knowledge. Everybody's coming together here, and in a sense, time and space are coming to this in the heart of Jerusalem over here. Everybody's coming together in this well of knowledge. And I think this is really interesting because it's creating this depository of memory across Jerusalem for everybody to come together and experience. And it's a really cool space. And so I just wanted to take you inside it, and you can see how spiraling around, everybody's sitting around it. All the different collections on display. This is the bottom level is Jerusalem, Israel, and the middle sections are the humanities, the musical archives, and then the top is also Israel and the Middle East, all of these different collections. And it's really just like amazing to walk around here and experience. But we're going to continue on the tour. This is the auditorium in the light for you to see, where they can have the events. So this is the top level. We entered here, the educational center, auditorium, cafe. We're going to go in here. I'm going to show you all the different exhibitions, and mainly we're going to focus on the Treasury of the Words. Level -1, more reading halls, private rooms where you can sit and study with your friends. This is what the middle level looks like. Again, that dramatic staircase. If you want to go into the library, anybody can go into the library. So the security guard here, he checks that you've signed up to the library website to get a library card for free. Anybody can do that. You can do that at home, and then you can go inside. The bottom level has the Judaica collection and the Israel collection. And this is at the bottom of that dramatic staircase. You can see the reading room behind over here has on display a display that for reminder for and a tribute to all the hostages. The librarians went and researched them and all of their interests and hobbies, and they picked a book out for each one of them. And when they come home, they present them with the book. The underneath one of the levels is the robotic stacks, which we're going to eventually get to. That's the fun part of the library, because the library has inside it 4.5 million books. On display, what you saw in the reading room is only 250,000 books. How are we going to preserve all of these books? How are we going to keep them for posterity? That's one of the roles of the library. How are we going to make sure that nothing happens to these books? How are we going to store them? So that's a very big question, which we're going to get to. The library itself has this big stack underneath it, the robotic stack. That's what I mentioned. That's where they're all stored. 6 levels above. 2 of these levels are operations, and you've got the exhibition, the big reading room over here. It's a green, sustainable building to the highest level. And I don't know all of the engineering that has gone into all of this, but you can kind of see here how they're doing all of this cool stuff with the lighting. And the coolest thing they do is over here, they store 270,000 rocks, and they use this ventilation system to bring in the cool air at night from Jerusalem that cools the rocks, and then somehow they push it and use it to flow into the air conditioning system. Don't ask me, I'm not an engineer, I've got no idea how that works. The collections themselves, 4.5 million books, 2.5 million photographs, newspapers, manuscripts, maps, recording, notes, articles, posters, archives, videos, piyutim and tefillot. They're collecting everything. They've got a huge digital archive, and you can access it yourself from your home. So it's super interesting, everything that they are doing. And especially I wanted to mention that after October 7, 2 days after October, oh, we're going to stop this for a second. 2 days after October 7, they decided, you know what, we have to do something about this. And how many people do you think were researching before October 7, what is the political aftermath after the Yom Kippur War, versus how many people after October 7? Because people go back in order to learn. And so they decided, how are we going to know what's important, what things to preserve? And so they decided, you know what, we're going to preserve everything. And they've been doing this bearing witness iCarve from like day 2 after October 7, and you can all play a part of that. We're going to go in to the educational center. The first thing that happens is when you go on a tour, you go into this welcoming room and you watch a video which has different people that either work in the library or important people from Israel, which talk about what their favorite book is and the importance of books in the library. And then this screen turns into a memorial from October 7 of all the people that have fallen, whether they be soldiers or civilians. And as I mentioned, they've been doing this archive. And so this is available on their website. They're interested in things not only from Israel, but all around the world. How have your communities been commemorating October 7 on their anniversary? Did you create a book, a ceremony? They want to know. Over here, it says country. They want everything so that it can be preserved. And they're using a whole lot of collaborators in order to do that. People are coming together. Now we're going into the permanent exhibition gallery to have a look at the treasures that are on display. Some really cool things that are inside here. The oldest article, not book, the oldest article that the library has on display are these amulet bowls over here, which I'll show you in a second. Just having a look at the room, you can see how the cracks of light are coming through the walls. but only a little bit because we've got our treasures on display here. We don't want to overburden the room with too much light. Here are these amulet bowls that have Hebrew writing on them that are buried underneath your house to keep the demons away. And what this is showing is the power of words, that it has over your life. On display over here are the treasures of the library, some of their very, very old books. Over here is the Damascus Codex of the Pentateuch with cantillation marks and notations from the 10th century, originally written in Tiberias, passed community to community until it reached Damascus in the 10th century. I've got another picture of that further on. But the printed materials, it tells a story. These are Vulgates. These are the Christian Bible in print. And look at their smaller size, because these were made for distribution. We got to preach the gospel. Over here, I might just stop on this one because this one is an interesting, oh, hold on a second. I think I've got a print of it. But this was when printing comes into being in the 1700s. This is a Mekorok Dolot from Amsterdam. So what that is the Bible with the biggest commentaries. But you don't want to have the same printed book that your friend has. So they leave these big spaces for personal artistic works to be added in, so your book can be different from the next person's, just to keep it unique. And we see here it's from Amsterdam. But I really think the coolest thing in the room is at the back of the room, this display table is basically all different archives of famous people. So over here, you've got Hanna Senes, who was the paratrooper from Hungary that lived in Stotyam and was caught by the Nazis. And over here is the last poem that she wrote to her mother, which was found in her pocket. And then, oh, it pops out over here and you can see that letter. Not the best resolution, but there you go. And one of my favorite things on this table, I mean, they've got the archive of Shai Agnon, who won the Nobel Prize for Literature. They've got the archive of Yeshayahu Leibovitz and Nechama Leibovitz. And this is Naomi Shemer, the poet who wrote Jerusalem of Gold, Yerushalayim Shel Zahav. And over here, you can see her notebook where she wrote the 2 extra verses after 1967 that were added to the song. So these are the original notation of the music that she wrote. And then here you have the notebook, which is actually an address book. You can see the little letters there. And she adds in those last 2 verses. Chazarnu el borot hamayim l'shuk v'lekikar shofeh koreh b'har habayit b'ir ha'atika. ובמערות אשר בסלע אלפי שמשות זוכות נשוב נרד אל ים המלח בדרך יריחו. It's like, so that is, we have returned to the cisterns, to the marketplace. The shofar calls out in the Temple Mount, in the old city. ובמערות אשר בסלע, again, going back to the rock, in the caves of the mountain of the rock, all of the sun shines and we return again on our way down to the Dead Sea via Jericho. So I think that also, again, connects to the rock, to Jerusalem, and why this is so important. This is just a picture of the room in general. And just to show you, again, some of those things. Oh, they've got a collection of newspapers. Here's the newspaper J'accuse. Emile Zola wrote about the Dreyfus case. You can access all of this. This was some of the maps that were on display. This is the first cartographic map of Jerusalem, of course, done by a British guy, Charles Wilson, an engineer, in 1865. I stared at this map for ages because not only do you have the old city, Yamin Moshe out here, you've got all of these churches, and it's just amazing. This was the bunting map that I mentioned before from 1581, that the clover leaves, that is one of the famous maps of Jerusalem. I'm going to keep going. This was the Damascus Codex. I want to get to, this is how you can look it up yourself. If you go on the website, you can view the Damascus Codex yourself. You press discover, you go to Judaism, you go to Treasures of the Jewish People, and then a lot of these books you can then press on yourself and have a look at it yourself. Just to show you that they also have a huge Islamic collection. They've got Qurans dating back to, they told me, in the 9th century, which is pretty cool. And also here is a very big deal, is Maimonides' commentary on the Mishnah, where you can see that he's actually rubbed out words and makes mistakes himself. So here is also, since we're near Pesach, a Haggadah from Germany. Here it's a Reform Haggadah. You can see Eliyahu Hanavi looks a bit like Jesus over here. And in the Haggadah, it says that next year in Mainz, not in Jerusalem. 101 Treasures of the National Library. Go out and get that book. It'll be in the follow-up email. Next is a rotating gallery at the moment. It's an exhibition about Franz Kafka. I'm not going to go into that. I'm going to go to the electronic stacks down the bottom in -3, where 4.5 million books are stored. How do they do that? Now, what are books' biggest enemy? Books' biggest enemy is fire and water. In the electronic stacks over here, it is only 14% oxygen, which means that a fire cannot be sustained, cannot be lit, won't happen. So they don't have sprinklers here either, because the fire is just not going to happen. All the boxes have a code on them, and all the books have a code on them. So they doop-de-doop, put it in the computer, and then the machine goes out, just like in a big Amazon warehouse, brings out the box and the book, but it doesn't have to go back to the same place because they're all coded. So if you've got the box has a code and the book has a code, the machine doesn't have to work so hard. If it knows of an open space, it can put the book in the box back somewhere else because it's all coded and the computer knows where everything is going. Pretty impressive. 4.5 million books on storage here and space for more. Really, really cool. Next, I thought, what about Orange County, California? What can we find about Orange County, California? If we look up in the catalog, I had a look and it came up with 34 results. And I had a look through all the different results and I thought, what am I going to find? What am I going to take out? I found this interesting book, Jewish Pioneers of Orange County. I decided to order it and go into the library.
Okay, I've come into the library and now I'm going to find the book that I've ordered. I've come to the collection desk. Hi, I'm Gila. I'm good. How are you? I'm very good.
Waiting for you.
Oh, amazing. Thank you so much.
That you ordered previously.
Yeah.
We have a note with your name.
Okay.
And enjoy.
Thank you so much.
You finish, come here, you got the book.
Thank you.
You're most welcome.
Okay, I'm going to take the book and I'm going to find out what's inside.
So you have to return the books. The books are not for borrowing.
Here we are, the Jewish Pioneers of Orange County. From
the 1850s to the 1870s.
Jewish Pioneers of Orange County, edited by Dahlia Taft. So there you go, you're in the National Library. Well done.
So Dahlia, I don't know if you're on the Zoom or not, but Dahlia is one of our members of CSP. And so it's very, very cool that in the National Library in Israel, we have a member of CSP's book on display. Here I am reading it in the National Library, all learning all about Orange County and the synagogues and the different shops. Very, very cool. And what does this mean? It means that you are a part of the story. And that is the whole point of the library, that it's a home not only for the National Library of Israel, but for the National Library of the Jewish people, and it tells the story. And how can you follow the story as well? I really recommend you follow the blog, the library. If you go to the webpage, and I'll send you again this in the follow-up email, the librarians have a blog where they talk about different interesting stories. And for those who are really interested in manuscripts, there is a Facebook group. You can see over here it says Hasifriya Halumit, which in Hebrew means the National Library. Okay, and basically the head of the manuscript section, he runs this Facebook group, and he posts all interesting stories related to manuscripts, the watermarks, matching the watermarks from this one to this one, missing pages, it's been sold in this auction, is it new, is it not? There's all sorts of interesting stories, and you don't have to know Hebrew, because you go onto Facebook and then you press translate on the post, and then you can read the stories. So I'll give you the link to that Facebook group as well. So we're coming to an end. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you to the CSP community. You are the best. I'm here for your questions. I hope I can answer them, but I hope that you enjoyed this virtual tour and that you were able to, I guess, to have a taste of the library.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Gila. That was absolutely magnificent and wonderful talk. We have plenty of questions and wonderful commentaries complimenting you for this, the most informative and the most interesting visit. Lots of technical questions, like those of you who are lucky to be in Israel or visit Israel. When we want to visit the library, whether to read a book there or to go on a tour, what do we do?
Okay, so anybody can visit the library. It's open from 9, the main sections, the main reading room is open from 9 till 8 every day, except for Saturday. You don't have to be a member, but if you want to do a tour, then, and that is free, but if you want to do a tour, that has to be pre-booked online, and that does cost money. Also, the cultural events are also cost money. But just to go into the library, to walk around it, that is free.
So if I, for example, if I if I register online and I get that digital card and visit the library, I can borrow the book, I can read it there. I don't take it home, right?
Yeah.
I read it there, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And also, can I look around myself, or I shall join a tour group there?
Sorry, you have to.
Can I like look around, go to those beautiful rooms with like old manuscripts?
That has to be done with the tour group.
With the tour group.
The treasures is you only view that through the tour group.
And I register for it online on the website, on the library's website.
I'll send the link.
Wonderful. And of course, we have a question about the staircase, which is absolutely magnificent and gorgeous. And it reminds me of so many beautiful museums. It reminds me a little bit of Prado Museum and also of Gaudi buildings in Barcelona. But what about those who can't make the steps? Yeah. So is there an elevator?
Yeah, as we just walked in, the very first thing that I pointed out to the left was the elevator. So yes, there's an elevator. There's 2 entrances, the main one on the top, and then another entrance at the bottom on Rupin Street, and there's elevators between every single level. The cafeteria is kosher, but it's not Mahadrin, and it's not Chalav Yisrael. It's just General Rabbinate of Jerusalem. And also, if you want to have a meeting there are meeting rooms, and you can use the catering of the library. Wow. And as for what happened on the Givat Ram campus to the old library, it's very interesting, but after October 7, it was turned into a school for evacuees from Shlomi.
Wow.
So
and it still is.
Well, no, now it's no
Not
longer.
anymore.
Now it has become just part of the university. Are the architects Jewish? Maybe Herzog is, but I don't think de Meuron is, and they're Swiss. They're Swiss. But they did collaboration with the local architect Mann and Scheiner.
I also have a question about this main reading room. Since it's such a giant space and there's so many people, isn't it noisy? Is it rather quiet or noisy there?
Very quiet. I was told I wasn't allowed to film inside it. Because like
Mhm.
you can't really film random people. I was very naughty and I hid and I kind of did it surreptitiously.
I see Mona Fishbane. I see you have a question. I see your hand up. Would you like to ask your question? Yes, please. Please unmute yourself first. Please unmute yourself first.
You have
And
Oh,
so
there
we
you
can,
go. Okay, I
yeah.
was able. First of all, thank you. This was absolutely fabulous. We were at the National Library, didn't do a tour except from a friend, but it was extremely quiet because you have to get a library card. Random people don't just wander in and make a lot of noise. It's a very rare library. I also wanted to tell you that many of you have heard Rachel Korazim teach through CSP. She's my teacher on Hebrew poetry, and when the book Shiva came out, which is the book that of since October 7th poets that she published, she had to and did take 2 copies of the Shiva book to the National Library. That's per the law. So I thought you'd all enjoy knowing that.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you for your wonderful comment. Gila, I have another question. How do you think today the National Library of Israel, the new National Library, does it serve more as a museum or as an actual library where people come to read and do their research?
Oh, every table is taken. People are sitting in the cafeterias learning. When I visited the National Library in Givat Ram, there was barely anybody sitting there. And now it's really become this beacon where everybody is coming to meet because it's such a cool space. And it's also got the facilities which have been made open and accessible to everybody. I saw the question about how much of it is digital. And I don't have the answer to that, but I'm sure I can try and find it in I'm sure it's written down somewhere. So thanks for that question about how much of it is actually digital. But of those 250,000 books which are on display, all of them have an extra one in the stacks downstairs. So if something happens to the library above ground, they've still got another one that's protected underneath. Oh, did I tell you the coolest thing? With the codex and in the book of the treasuries, there is a person and his job is to each week come and turn the pages of the books so that they don't get exposed to too much light. That is literally his job. And so he comes to each of those treasure books and he turns a page. He does other things as well, but I thought that would be a cool job. Maybe I'll
This
apply.
is incredible. And it means that the books that are actually on display, those old manuscripts, are the original ones. Because in many libraries, they do the new copies that they actually display, preserving the originals. And so the Israeli National Library actually shows us the
Shows you those originals
originals.
on display, and you can access them digitally. And there's a security guard who was walking around there the whole time. Leaning on to take pictures, he came up to me quite a few times. And just looping back, when I was talking about the fence around the library and how there is no fence and it's open to everybody, that's a great expense to the library because they have to pay for security guards outside and other security systems as well. But it's to that commitment that they have to democratizing knowledge that it was a stipulation and that was done.
This is incredible. Back to that wall that you showed us and giving us several versions of the allegory that can come to our mind. What comes to your mind? What's the closest one to your soul? What of it talks to you?
Yeah, definitely the Western Wall, because I think that is such an icon of Jerusalem. And this is saying that this is not a place of worship, but a place of culture that is bringing everybody together. And I think that everybody comes to the Western Wall, Jews, Christians, Muslims, and everybody also comes to the library. Like when you walk around the library, you see everybody. And what I thought was really cool, one of the security guards to the entrance of the library, he sits there all day checking people's library cards, and at the same time he's learning Gemara. And then all the religious girls come and they look and they go, "What are you learning?" And then he like picks them up. It's really fun. There's a lot of things that are happening at the library, just like Isaac and Rebecca at the well.
That's hilarious. Thank you for sharing it. Okay, from the soul down to the earth, what is the annual budget of the library, if you happen to know that?
So I don't know the annual budget, but I know it's not only government, it's a lot of private donations, and the biggest ones are the Gottesman family and the Hanadiv, the Rothschilds family. Basically, the building was basically thanks to those two families, but there's a lot of endowments, and every single hall and room is named after somebody else. And so it's a lot of private donations have gone into it. Somebody asked about the cost to visit. It's 55 shekels to do a tour, which is about just under $20, maybe like $15, $16. So and Nahuva said that she's connected to the digitalizing, so maybe she can tell us how much is digitalized. But there's a lot that you can access online. And so the library also is open for donations. If anybody wants to contribute, you always can.
Oh, that's a great idea. I have another person. Faith, I can see your hand. Please unmute yourself, and we're happy to hear your voice.
Oh, Gila, I'm just wondering, can any of the materials be checked out like in an American library? I mean, nothing can be taken out. You just have to examine it there or read it there. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your question. Gail, I can see your hand. Please unmute yourself, and we're happy to hear your voice.
I'm so happy to see, this is great, Gila. Thank you so much. I'm just wondering, in terms of the collection, you showed us a book in English. Are there a lot of books in English versus Hebrew?
I don't know the percentage of English versus Hebrew, but they collect everything.
They also collect English books.
I don't know that percentage. I have to look that up for the follow-up.
Okay. But if you didn't read Hebrew, you could find what to read.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay.
They collect everything. So there's a lot of books that are printed in Israel that that are in English, but also they collect not only things from Israel, they collect things from all around the world. As you saw, the book from Orange County, which was in English.
Right. In other languages as well?
Yes, they've got a big collection in Farsi and like a big Islamic collection, Turkish. And, you know, they also have, we recently had Clinton Bailey, who is a CSP lecturer that passed away recently. He donated his entire archive on the Bedouin culture. So all of those recordings that he did and interviews with the Bedouins are part of the archives. They've got over 1,000 different archives, which is really amazing.
Thank you. Lovely to speak to you.
Yes. From Hawaii, Gail.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Gila, for this most interesting talk. Thank you all CSP members for being with us today, for your participation, for your interest, for your questions. Thank you very, very, very much. Please expect the follow-up email with all the information and recommendations and websites and books and everything. And so we'll see each other very soon. Stay tuned, stay well. See you soon. Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye for now. Thanks, Evgenia, for hosting.